G'day, guys. This is CW. Welcome to another HashItOut. I think we've got a pretty hot topic here today. Post-merge, obviously, we've seen some unprecedented sort of events happen within the crypto mining industry and then the industry as a whole with Ethereum going proof of stake. And we're sort of just witnessing the aftermath of that. So let's hash that out today, gentlemen.
All right, sounds good.
Let's get into it.
All right. So first things off, I think in the Ergo ecosystem, let's address the sort of monkey on its back with the difficulty. Let's just go straight for it.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing that everybody needs to realize, right, is we just experienced an event that has never happened in our industry, right? You had a market leader with an incredible amount of computational mining power behind it, rug mining, and then immediately, run into some potential issues on the other side. But all of that homeless computational power needed somewhere to go. And I think that anybody that had any type of foresight, I know I've kind of been trying to tell people have a plan, realize that, if everybody jumps on the bandwagon, the bottom falls out, right? The proof of work coins basically currently don't have the capacity to support the cost of running all of that equipment. Just that simple, right? And so we kind of enter a new era, day one, so to speak. Proof of work mining post ETH, I think, will be a marathon because we are starting from day one, right? The amount of value that markets absorb to actually run and support mining equipment, it just isn't in place to have a smooth transition. So the bottom needs to fall out, things need to consolidate, and hopefully everybody out there has a plan for that, because there's nothing that we can do to save you short term, right? That's just simply the situation.
Yeah, most definitely. Across the world, we see that, what was it? It was something around 350 odd 400 terahash of ETH terms that came over to the GPU mineable side of things. Obviously, the ASIC sort of had their own home, so we can not sort of take those into these equations. But that being spread out throughout the entire mining sort of industry now for the proof of work coins that are GPU mineable, the profitability, we've all been talking about it, like the discussions we've been having on this show. We've had sort of multiple discussions throughout other sort of channels and bits and pieces also. But I think sort of reality is actually hitting home now, a couple of days after the merge, and it might have been a little bit of hype and sort of excitement while the merge was happening. But I think all the dust is sort of somewhat starting to settle, and the reality is actually starting to hit that the profitability is not there for a lot of the miners.
Yeah, we saw some pretty extreme euphoria in those first 24 hours with the 5-second blocks, 10-second blocks, and so much erg was just shot out into the hands of the miners in that 24-hour period, and now we're sort of catching up with the difficulty spike. And with the way that our algorithm works, there's a delay in that compensation, and people that have been around in the ecosystem, we've seen this before, not to sort of the extreme extent that we've seen in the last few days, but I think a lot of us saw this coming. It's just maybe miners weren't expecting it, or bottom line is they're not making money, so they're frustrated, and a lot of the complaining that is happening is really just because I think it's misplaced frustration and anger. Their source of income is gone, so of course they're going to be upset about it.
It's painful, and I can feel for people in that situation, but
yeah,
the reality is this is day one, or now we're in like the first week. Nobody's going to save them, right? Like, I think that's like the complete wrong thinking to have. Now's the time for long-term strategic thinking, right?
Yeah.
We need to build proof of work. I would love to see Ergo lead that, because we have the capacity to offer a lot of dApps and programmability that is relatively rare now that ETH is off doing what it's doing. So it's early, first week, right? And at this point, it's a matter of saying, okay, well, things are going to consolidate, right? I can predict that, because you had so much value that the market basically could absorb. And what did that value do? Is it ran mining equipment. That's what it did. And so now you don't have as much value in proof of work to run mining equipment. So there's a problem, right? And so profitability is going to probably not be that great, because you have a ton of people looking to work, right? And what does that do? It drives down wages, so to speak. And so we'll ride it out for a period of time. Now, the diff, that was painful. It didn't break the blockchain. We actually had a couple 1 second blocks even, but Ergo is still here. It was designed for resilient change, although that certainly was a hell of a shock. But moving forward, it does. There's concerns. Okay, having that delayed differential, our difficulty adjustment is an issue. So, we've proposed the capacity for miners to participate in creating an EIP. We've also proposed a work group to look at the potential hopping issues that could arise. That's generally the concern out there. And so on one hand, you have the thinking group to create a solution, and you have the other group to monitor if it's needed. Like, that's long-term strategic thinking. There's a lot of people that came in, and they just were like, save us. Devs, you have the power again.
Do something, devs.
Well, and to one, I can understand the situation, right? But on my other hand, my head almost exploded. It's like, didn't you guys just come from an ecosystem where the devs fucked you?
Yeah.
Like, here we are the first week, and you're saying, like, have all of the power. You're like, some people were proposing things that would, essentially rug minor governance.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, this is not the mindset to create long-term value. It's not the mindset to have wise choices in engineering and design. This is reactionary, right? And that's not how you want to build these type of systems.
Yeah, you just touched on governance there, and that's what I was just about to elaborate on. And coming from the ETH ecosystem, where the devs were sort of the king and ruler with the mighty hand and sort of did whatever they want, it's completely different here at Ergo. The miners have a number of sort of parameters they can control. They basically control or have custody of the blockchain with storage, rent, and everything. And anything that actually has to be implemented as in regards to, say, a soft fork or a hard fork, it all needs to be voted on by the miners. The devs can't just push something out there and it instantly happens. It has to have consensus across all miners and everything like that. And to that point also, it's not going to be implemented on a whim. Also, there's going to be testing, and we know sort of the research-based approach that Ergo sort of has taken. They're not just going to sort of sit there and just flick a switch and go, all right, that'll do, because ultimately all that governance is then just thrown out the window. So everyone who has been complaining about the ETH devs saying just doing whatever they want, coming onto Ergo, the miners have the power, and now they just want to sort of throw it back into the devs' hands and just throw it all up in the air. It's like, who knows where we're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, and when all that governance is going to be really important also.
Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is, the fix it, save us mentality. I look at the macro in terms of like the market's ability to absorb value that runs miners. We're in for some pain. I look at the macro in terms of like, global finance, not the greatest, blue skies out there, right? The industry right now, we're in a consolidation phase. There was really hot markets not that long ago. a lot of it, kind of, I don't know, repeated 2017 where there was great marketing and huge solutions with no actual code. And then there was a lot of just Ponzi DeFi shit that people were chasing, even though they knew or should have known this isn't sustainable.
Yeah. I think that ties to Noah's point also. People want money. So they put all that risk and sort of that that logical thinking because they get caught up in the euphoria and just ape in and do the whole crypto sort of monkey in and ape and carry on into God knows what shitcoin.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I feel like all the topics we've talked about over the course of this show have kind of culminated in the the last week as far as governance and hash rate and mining and all this stuff. I think people just have to remember, like with the governance thing specifically, if we do want a solution to a problem, if there is a problem, first we have to identify if the problem is worth changing, and then we have to put forward a plan for solving it, and then actually building the solution that we decide to, go with. It's a long process. Think back on EIP 27, how long of a process that was from when that was first proposed. By the time the solution is actually built, none of this is actually going to be an issue anymore, because by then the consolidation will likely be, kind of the dust will have settled by then anyway. So,
it's a potential.
Or at least that's what I think. That's my guess. Obviously,
I think it's definitely worth having a group that monitors for that type of hopping, right?
For sure.
But any time that the hash rate at this point gets profitable, people are going to hop on.
Yeah.
Why? Because everybody's looking to work. And so I don't think that's going to magically resolve itself overnight. I don't think that's something that, in my perspective, right? If I were to speak honestly with everybody here, I think, okay, we're in the first week of basically brand new markets, right? Because proof of work on the GPU side was built around ETH.
Yep.
That's gone. So everybody needs to accept that reality that whatever was happening pre-merge, that was a different chapter. We're in a new one, right? And so if everyone's like, well, let's rewind back a couple pages to, when things were good, that's not reality now. We need to wake up to just the fact that source of, mining revenue is gone, and we need to kind of rebuild. And I think we have a good foundation to do that, but it's not something that even ETH built in a week, right?
Yeah.
That's something that they developed over years. And so, long term, if I look at the amount of miners out there, the amount of computational power, and the raw desire for people to work and be profitable, I think that incentive isn't gone. It's just we need to rebuild the market.
Yeah. I touched on this in a tweet that I released this week also, and it's kind of around the theme or the logic around being back in sort of the 2017, 2018 sort of fallout after, or the aftermath of the sort of blow off top, and just getting into that bear market. And miners, the profitability there, the mining wasn't cool back then, I'd probably say. People would sort of get on there and they might have 2 or 3 rigs and things like that. Leading up to like this sort of bull run here, people just went crazy and just accumulated as many cards because the profitability was there. But for all those miners who stuck it out and built up an actual meaningful DeFi ecosystem in ETH, they're the ones who profited like greatly, and they're the ones who sort of ultimately laid the foundation and built up that ecosystem, in my opinion, personally. So it's having that hard reset. I mean, the reset sort of word gets thrown around a lot these days, but it's basically what sort of has happened into the industry at the moment. And in regards to sort of the strategic planning and thinking side of things, anyone with sort of half a brain will be diving in and just exploring all the options and diving into the fundamentals and trying to find what provides the most value in regards to the fundamental side of things. And just my personal take, Ergo's the strongest out of the lot. The development, the ecosystem growth, but most of all the community that's are in and around the ecosystem. That's what provides the value, and I think we've got a really close knit sort of community there, and ultimately a great foundation to sort of move forward.
Yeah, I think on that note, something I've been talking with Rob and Acker and LGD and all those guys that are sort of building new tools for miners and things like that. And I think that's really where the future is, as far as building that foundation up for miners, creating incentives that will draw hash rate to Ergo. Something I was talking about with those guys today was just trying to sort of conceptualize something akin to MEV on UTXO. Like what kind of financial incentives could exist that would draw people in to help sort of start fresh on the square one that we're at. I think that's the kind of innovation that we need to be thinking about rather than just complaining about profitability. Because if you can make things more profitable, then they'll be profitable. But to do that, you have to be smart and, you
can't do that long term. That's the reality. That's the thing that I'm just going to say drives me insane about our industry is this thinking that you can hack your way to value. You could, whether it's marketing or just instant market access. And, there's nothing behind it, right? It's always a temporary spike and then fizzle off, right? But if you want to build value, you need to build on strong foundations. Now, I can say, moving forward, two things that I have a lot of confidence in is, number one, the creative ability of the Ergo community, that if an EIP is needed, it'll get done and it'll get done well. And I also have confidence that if there's an issue, the community will track it and they'll deliver data to show this is an issue, right? That's not something that I even have a concern about, just looking at kind of the mind share and the level of engagement in our ecosystem. But it's understandable right now. What's kind of the mood in the room when it comes to miners? Fear and anxiety. And the reality is that a bad place to start long-term strategic thinking. And that's where we need to be because we're in week one.
Yep. And I think, it's a big realization for a lot of people, like I sort of mentioned earlier. You touched on the mind share there, the development mind share, but then just the community engagement might not have the developers, but they're the ones sort of jumping in and having the discussions and who knows sort of what solutions that could be out there, but they're having the discussion, they're taking part in it, they're trying to sort of to nut all this sort of stuff out. And I think that sort of pays testament to like the ethos or the community, sort of the grounding that we have here. And it's basically accept all and sort of see what happens, because someone might have a bright idea and they throw the spaghetti at the wall and it sticks and everyone moves forward. It doesn't have to necessarily be a miner or a developer or anyone like that for that instance. It's a pretty cool thing to see in this ecosystem.
I wouldn't.
Sorry, what?
I said I wouldn't underestimate it. Yeah. Looking at some of the solutions, ideas, data analysis that have come out of our ecosystem. If there's a problem, we'll get it fixed.
And submit to Ergo Hack. Submit your ideas to Ergo Hack.
That's a good thing to get into now. We do have the Ergo Hack coming up. That's around, we have a section of it that's mining. So if you have any mining ideas, you want to build something, you want to even do research. We're always open to that.
Yeah. I want to sort of shift back in the conversation and get back to the difficulty bit. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can talk about why it is the way that it is, why it was designed to do what it's currently doing. Because it's very easy to point the finger at it and say, this is wrong. Here's why it's wrong, without trying to understand why it is doing it.
Sure. So one thing you have to take into account is governance, right? Ergo is an ecosystem that wants to give governance to miners, and long epochs are quite important to that because it gives solo miners a vote, right? Solo miners aren't hitting blocks on a regular basis. So if we were to say, okay, we're going to have block-based voting, but it's in a short period of blocks, we just gave all the power to big pools, right? We don't want that. We want representation, representation of small pools and solo miners. That's important. ETH came off, their design, they essentially, adjusted every block. There's a lot of research and speculation that that was being gamed. We don't need to get into that here. It's already publicly available out there. Anybody with internet is watching this, so hop on Google, type it, and read about it, right? There are other methods of adjustment. I think Ravencoin uses something that Dash came up with when it was Darkcoin, changed it a little bit, plugged it in. And in Ergo, a huge part of that has to do with like updating the network, right? Because when you're voting and you're actively like trying to reach consensus, which miners have a lot of levers they can pull. You want to adjust the block size, you can vote on that, right? And we have a long voting period, and then over time, the network will upgrade. That's how it was designed, to kind of be amendable, but somewhat conservatively, because obviously if everybody is, vote for the block size, vote for the block size, vote for the block size, they can create, rapid change that can create network issues. So there is some, let's say, guardrails in terms of like how quickly can miners raise fees? How quickly can they increase block sizes, right? That's kind of needed. So markets and potentially developers have time to adjust, because the reality is, even something like a fee change, you have to have a lot of upgrades throughout the ecosystem to support that. Wallets would have to upgrade, developers would have to potentially recost some things. It's not like separate from the rest of the ecosystem. So a huge part of that has to do with governance. And when people come in and they say, okay, well, we want to follow ETH's model because their difficulty adjustment was fast, even though it was maybe gamed, they're giving up their entire right to govern the ecosystem, right? They're taking powers away from miners because short-term reactive thinking. Now, it is true that came from a time when Ergo was non-outsourceable, meaning everybody was a solo miner. And if you have democratic representation, you need a long epoch and a lot of votes. That way, everybody can vote, right? Yep. That wasn't really changed as we added pooling, and pooling does kind of shift around how quickly people can come and go, right? That's like one thing that has changed a lot in proof of work mining over the years, is now you have the ability to mine a different chain in a matter of seconds, really, if you have everything set up. And I do think that long term, general purpose hardware mining is it's going to tend to centralize around the project. I think it is going to be a winner take all game. I think we're well positioned for that, in all honesty, because we have the ability to deliver secondary economic value beyond just mining something and then selling it, right? We have DeFi, we have NFTs, we have lending coming out. We have a lot of different options that people can take the coin that they created with their work and put it to work on top of the network versus just hold it or sell it, right? And I think long term, that's where we need to focus, whether it's mining pools focusing on DeFi or just developers building new use cases that deliver value, because that's how you grow. I mean, if I look at it as a new chapter, right? Everything that existed pre-merge does not exist anymore. So all the boys and girls out there, forget about that part of the story. It's over.
Yeah, like that's a common sort of narrative that I keep hearing. Also, it's like ETH did this and ETH did that, and I think it sort of just pays testament to the sort of familiarity of sort of the ecosystem that they're coming from, because they were happy there. They were mining. They were getting reasonably good returns, and yeah, it's just all sort of thrown out the window at the moment, and time to start fresh. And you did touch on the ecosystem and the dApps and the additional value that can be built upon Ergo being the programmability that it does actually sort of allow. And you look at the things that are being built on here. There's the casino, like we got the mining side of things with GetBlock and the smart pooling, and the sort of little DeFi hub and everything that they're sort of working on at the moment. We've got Guap Swap. That's another sort of minor value add for those guys, launching via workflow projects. There's numerous things that sort of, I would say, hasn't sort of been out in the industry as a whole. That's sort of kind of unique to our little ecosystem, and we're just starting to see the little sort of shoots poking up through the dirt on that one. And who knows how big those trees or beanstalk could grow. It could be crazy.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, cryptocurrencies that are you just mine it and hold it or sell it. And it's funny to think that, not that long ago, that's what Ergo was. And that, like, how far we've come since then in such a short time. It's pretty incredible. Let's see what the next year looks like.
When you bootstrap an ecosystem in the right mind share and you deliver the right tools to developers, things will blossom really quickly. Now, hopefully, at least from my perspective, we build on solid foundations. There's a lot of things that are built in the crypto ecosystem that, even looking at them, it's like, this is a terrible idea. And generally that's the case. So, it's a matter of like looking at risk assessment and what actually makes sense long term, right? I would hope that everybody out there is trying to build a project that can stand the test of time versus just be one of these things that flywheels up, implodes, and then is dead.
Yeah.
And then forks 10 times and then does it again each fork, sadly.
Yeah. I think once again it sort of pays tribute to sort of what we've bootstrapped here at Ergo, or the community. Basically, it's all grassroots, and that mind share and the common thought process between everyone who sort of builds, and the cross collaboration. So it's amazing to watch everything sort of being built out, because it's not like a winner take all sort of mindset. It's everyone's willing to sort of help out. You've got, like, say, Crass working on multiple projects. You've got Cheese helping in at the deco side of things. So he's building layer 2, the smart pooling, everything like that. And then even finding time to go and help other sort of people coming in on a layman's term, and actually helping other developers outside of that also. So it's pretty cool to see all that sort of cross collaboration and collective mind share in the ecosystem sort of just come to life. And like you said, it just bootstraps the ecosystem and provides the foundation for this sort of exponential growth that, in my opinion, we'd probably see.
Yeah, I had hoped that with the influx of miners, we would see people excited to get in on that. And maybe there's some of that. So far, I haven't seen a lot of that. It is just 1 week, so maybe it's too soon. People are still just freaking out about profits, but maybe in time we'll see more of that sort of mind share expanding. Yeah, it feels like it's been a month, even though it's been a week. It's been a hell of a week.
I don't even know what day it is.
I'm excited about it. If I'm totally honest, I can look at what Ethereum did, and they did a lot right. They were in the position they created for very good reasons in terms of like how they use programmability, how they developed open source, how they delivered tools to devs. But there's a lot that I think could be built better and more around first principles of crypto, making things more resilient, having a lot less external risks inherited into DeFi, a lot less centralization, a lot less censorship. Like there are definitely things there that if we think ahead and look at the past as an example, we can build a better ecosystem in terms of first principles based approach and miner governance.
Yeah, I think I'm actually quite excited actually to see the miners start to find their voice and start the discussions around like even just sort of transaction fees, for instance. Like at the moment, they're in my opinion pretty significantly low compared to others in the ecosystem, and that's just one sort of little thing that can be tweaked and help sort of across the board. Like, and then obviously with the ecosystem adoption and seeing some users come in, miners start to explore and start dabbling in the ecosystem. Like I think NFTs is a relatively sort of easy barrier to entry, but yeah, we've got DEXs, we've got launch pads, multiple marketplaces. The auction house is looking pretty cool from all the little snippets that I've seen being put out. So that's just like the tip of the iceberg, to be honest.
New version of the mixer.
Yeah,
there's that. Yep.
Update to the mixer just came out yesterday or today. I can't remember what day it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's multiple things happening, which is exciting. It's like you said, it's not just a mineable coin that sort of you mine, you sell, and you buy, and you sell, and you trade, and things like that. It's you can actually get into the ecosystem and start putting your erg to work.
And hopefully the value creators, the people that are actually creating erg are the ones that benefit the most from that. It gives that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, I think that looking at it from like a perspective that, coins were created from work rather than just, minted and dropped or however they're distributed. We should respect that work and how we build things and deliver value with it.
The one thing I was going to touch on in this, you see a lot of the comments and the sort of the ad hoc reactions and the knee-jerk reactions throughout sort of crypto Twitter and things like that. And some of the frustrations that I'm seeing sort of across all the platforms, people are just sort of losing their minds at times, to be honest. And I think, I think that agitation, I know I'm sort of laughing, but I definitely feel the pain that these people are sort of, feeling, because ultimately the profitability, their income has sort of dropped through the floor and things like that. But we've been talking about it for how long on this show itself? A couple of months, leading up to sort of 3 months now. So a lot of people should have been sort of doing their homework, and it's somewhat funny in one hand, but yeah, definitely painful on the other.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the raw numbers of just the number of actual miners on Ethereum before the merge happened compared to the number of miners on Ergo and all the other chains, and it was just like, it was obvious that this was going to happen if you took 10 minutes to look into it, Yeah.
Everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon and then the bottom's going to fall out.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. Like that's what I thought was going to happen is, and now it's going to consolidate, right? And what that gives us the opportunity for as an ecosystem is to prepare for when consolidation occurs and the trajectory starts to change. Because at that point, if whether it's a month, 3 months, 6 months, who knows, right? That's not really in our control. There's a lot of macro factors involved to even predict that, and I'm certainly not Nostradamus or whatever. But that's where we need to be focused right now, is long-term strategic thinking to prepare for that shift. Because if we're there and we have the technology to deliver value, we'll basically be in a very good position, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Short term, it sucks. Like I can't save anybody from that. And the reality is, even if we had like a fix for the difficulty adjustment today and we could plug it in, it's not going to change the fact that as soon as things are profitable, people are going to hop on and profitability is going to disappear for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the bottom line is even if we didn't have the, let's say that the difficulty adjustment wasn't so swingy,
Mhm.
or sticky, I guess you could say. You know, it tends to stay high even after miners initially drop. You know, even at the height of when everyone had jumped on, it didn't take that long for profitability to, you know, go to crap. Even when the like even when the difficulty was, you know, half of what it is now, I think it was very unprofitable. So yeah, it's just where we're at.
Yeah.
Mining's tough right now.
Yep, I just think that's very well put. It's tough. It's a tough industry to be in, but along with that comes the adaptation, and then the sort of the excitement of the potential in the future on the ecosystem, just in Ergo itself. Being able to sort of flip that mindset where it's you take lemons, you make lemonade. So if you can see everything that's sort of being built here, and by all means jump in and start sort of having that mind share and starting the conversations, because those fruitful and sort of even constructive conversations, we want to have those in the ecosystem. And I think it's probably encouraged also to have those sort of type of conversations.
No, I agree completely. And the bottom line is, I think in time that economic incentive will return. Proof of work has gone through this multiple times. You know, crypto markets have gone through this multiple times. There's miners out there that, you know, if they've been around long enough. Unfortunately, you know, the last year or so of mining was crazy because profitability was crazy, but also price of hardware was insane.
Yeah.
And, you know, now, you know, I guess if people were late in that side, they probably have some costs they're carrying and profitability is gone, and that sucks.
Yeah.
But, you know, not much I can do about it.
I think what people should remember, you know, I've seen some crazy reactionary takes out there just about all the miners are going to leave and Ergo, the network is going to go to shit and blah, blah, blah. It's like, even with the difficulty up as high as it is, we're still like 50% higher hash rate than we were pre-merge, you know, like,
Yeah.
as far as the security of the network, we're doing great. It's just for miners, it's not profitable, but
It's
I don't
painful.
think, yeah, I don't think people need to worry about, you know, the security of the network because miners are all going to go away. You know, like miners will leave, but we'll find equilibrium. You know, it's just the nature of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll find equilibrium. It'll find profitability. And you could look at ETH and, you know, okay, yeah, they did have kind of like a Stockholm syndrome over their miners. They were profitable, right? And that economic incentive, when it's there, it'll attract miners. You know, right now the economic incentive is, you know, it's changed. And the bottom line is everybody needs to accept that new reality and start planning within it, rather than, you know, hoping we can go back a week to the good old times.
That economic incentives, that sort of might tie into just one thought I just had, just in regard to sort of tokenomics also, and how they play into things look moving forward. We know sort of Ergo has quite an aggressive emission schedule, and yeah, the supply demand side of things could get interesting also.
Plus, we have the smart pooling fair initial mining offering that I think we'll start seeing. You know, I think that definitely is going to be something that is simply a new line of revenue, right? The economics of ETH in terms of MEV, in terms of their market access was well established. That's all gone, boys. Like there's no going back. We have to rebuild, period. And so if people are saying, well, this is how it was, those times are gone.
Yeah, the smart poolings are cool. A cool sort of, I don't know, how do you describe it? Is it an additional incentive provider? Like the FIMO side of things, yes, projects can launch and things like that, but then also we've seen it with a number of projects where they actually provide some additional incentives there for miners and to be able to mine, say, ErgoPad or Neta, Comet, for instance, things like that of that nature, to provide an additional sort of incentive for miners. Some of it we could see it as goodwill, for instance, moving forward to try and sort of provide some extra value. MNFT projects might sort of start throwing their hat in the ring and offer these sort of incentives for miners. Who knows what the future holds?
And
yeah,
also,
it almost.
I'll go for it. No.
I'll just say real quick. It almost seems like sub pools are like a flexible framework rather than like, it doesn't seem like there's like a one size fits all of what a sub pool could be. It seems like there's a lot of possibilities. We were playing around with the idea of like a lottery sub pool where like people compete with different, they direct the same amount of hash and a certain block has like an extra reward attached to it. Like there's all sorts of different possibilities for novel incentives and things like that. I think that's something we really got to pay attention to.
Yeah. And I was just going to add, look at how young that is. I think that's something that's not fully appreciated. GitBlock really hasn't been around that long, and look at what they've accomplished. So if we're going to figure out, okay, well, based on the current, kind of mindshare growth in that area, where could we be in a year or 2 years or 3 years? It could be completely unrecognizable.
Yeah. Just to note also that project actually was stemmed from an Ergo hack. So by all means, another shout out to the Ergo hack. Submit your ideas and start the conversations. Even if you just have an idea, you don't have to be a developer. Jump into the incubator channel and start discussing it. You might form a team and take out the sort of the trophy, and there's a pretty reasonable prize pool also.
Yep. Get in there. Share your ideas. The last thing I wanted to sort of touch on is storage rent. And recently there was another analysis done by, I think, the guy behind Ergo Watch. I can't remember.
Curbside, Chris?
It might have been Chris. Yeah. I can't remember who did it, but a while back there was an analysis on storage rent and trying to predict what the future will look like as far as storage rent and fees replacing the emission schedule, if it's viable, if it's possible. And just a few days ago, there was sort of a follow-up analysis that suggested sort of at par or even greater than current emissions. Obviously, time will tell, but I encourage anyone concerned about the future of the emission schedule to seek out that post. And it's super informative. And, in the coming year, I expect we'll get more analysis, and as storage rent starts coming online, we'll have a better idea of, what the future looks like.
Yeah, I'll chuck the link in the description below.
Nice.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, storage rent, because that's another novel feature and another incentive for miners. Once people actually sort of start diving in and realizing that there is all these little sort of things throughout the ecosystem that sort of build up, we're not too far away from actually seeing the first box being sort of chewed away at due to storage rent. And obviously, that'll be the Genesis block.
No, it's going to be an interesting mechanism to look at how, smart pools, storage rent can create a new economic model around proof of work, right? We're in new territory, and we could get listed on some exchange, and that might increase our liquidity a little bit, right? But the reality is you got to look at the macro. And we just need to rebuild, right? We're weak. We need to rebuild, think long term, and deliver value. Nobody's going to save the proof of work. That's for us to kind of pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and get to work.
I've actually had that discussion just in regards to sort of what you just mentioned, and having that build up of everything, because internally I'd say that everyone's just sort of focused on still building. Like obviously there's a lot of noise outside and chatter and sort of uncertainty, but internally everyone's just head down, bum up, head, like, we know the direction we want to go, and it's just sort of forging ahead. So obviously on our roadmap we've got 5.0 coming up. That's currently being voted upon. Seeing some great numbers there in regards to sort of miner participation, and upwards of 96%, I think I saw was the last number thrown around, voting in favor of 5.0. And then just recently trying to have the discussion in regards to node 6.0 even, start that sort of in the pipeline. So in regards to sort of the development, and then the developers themselves, and where that sort of they want to take the project, and their regard to everything sort of going on externally. Yes, they'll listen and start to have the conversations in regards to sort of the coin hopping attacks, and monitoring that side of things, having the conversation in regards to sort of the solutions that could be provided. Yes, that's all there, but ultimately they just want to build cool stuff, build cool protocols, build resilient protocols, permissionless protocols, and that's ultimately the values added.
Yeah, I would say one of the.
I was just going to say, if you actually want to join in those conversations, head over to the Ergo forum. There's a couple of threads there that have been spun up to be able to follow along and then contribute also. So there's one for the coin hopping, and then also one for the the fruitful discussions in regards to sort of problem solutions, etc. So by all means, jump over there and start exploring and contribute to the conversation.
Absolutely. I think it's a good point time to like think back and remember that initially when Bitcoin started, people were so excited about the idea. They mined it for a long time before someone bought a pizza, right?
Expensive pizza.
Yeah, expensive pizza these days. But I think that says something in terms of like the drive, right? The vision of what this could be. And yeah. I hope our ecosystem has that same type of passion, that even if markets are shit and macro's not great, then there's a period of, I don't know, rough times ahead. The passion in terms of what we could build, what we could deliver, and what that could do gets us through that.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better.
Probably a good note to end on. Had a sort of, I don't know, somewhat sort of emotional discussion compared to what we normally have. I think sort of emotions are running high in the industry at the moment. So hopefully we've sort of addressed a couple of issues. But if anyone has any questions, by all means, reach out. Is there any last words, gents?
Yeah, we've got another block emission cut in 9 days. So it's going to get ugly before it gets better.
Well, yeah. That ties into the supply demand side. So obviously it's becoming a scarce commodity pretty quickly. If we do see a reasonable influx in regards to user adoption and ecosystem adoption, we see a number of dApps coming online. We know a number in development currently, but they're not too far away. So yeah, it's be interesting to see how it all plays out from the economics, like just a simple supply demand laws sort of side of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Any last words, Joe?
I would just say the sooner everybody can accept that the Ethereum era of proof of work is gone, and we can adapt to the new reality that's in front of us and move forward. And ultimately, that's going to be best for miners, best for everybody. And I look forward to that process.
Yeah, exactly. And just for myself, it's a new chapter. It's exciting. Obviously, it's going to be painful for a little while, but the possibilities sort of endless, and that's what excites me, to be able to see just the sort of everything start to blossom in the ecosystem from Ergo itself. But yeah, it'd be cool to see where we end up. The exponential growth. Who knows where we'll end up in the next sort of 2 months, 3 months, 12 months, or even 10 years. That's the exciting part. So yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting once again, gentlemen. So thanks everyone for tuning in also. By all means, reach out if you have any questions. So cheers. Thanks very much, guys.
Good one.
See you next time.
Have a good one.